What do teacher researchers do?
Teacher researchers develop questions based on their own curiosity about their students' learning and their teaching, and investigate their questions with their students while systematically documenting what happens.
Teacher researchers examine their assumptions and beliefs and articulate their theories. Teacher researchers collect and analyze data from their classes, including their own observations and reflections.
Teacher researchers give presentations and write about their research.
Teacher researchers discuss their research with their colleagues for support as critical friends to validate their findings and interpretations of their data.
It all begins with a simple, curious wondering. When I ask myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, if it's working, and what is my evidence, I can align my underlying principles with my instructional practices. In this way, I am recognizing my belief system and challenging my practices. As I began to put my ideas on paper, I started to see that much of my practice as a teacher was born of necessity. I felt unsatisfied with my classroom, but I didn't know why. It started to become evident that I desired a classroom of critical thinkers, but I never gave my students the platform or direction to think critically. After I had a clearer understanding about my principles and vision, I wondered how I could best serve my population of at-risk students. As I began to research at-risk and underachieving students, I found that their needs were different than a successful student in a traditional setting. And suddenly it clicked. I was using an instructional approach and strategies that were easy to create and replicated the learning environment from which I was successful. After much work and deliberation, I found my final research focus: creating and implementing instructional strategies that engage at-risk students. This has been an exceptionally enlightening process. Although there are no easy answers or quick fixes, I know how to become a better teacher through active questioning, reflecting, and researching. Now I don't just want to do better, I know how to do better.
So much of my research has been about gaining a deeper understanding of what I do or want to do in my classroom. The ideas of questioning, inquiry, and student-centered learning are not new to me, but I'm finally developing a clear vision of how I can use these strategies in my classroom. And I suspect that when I actually carry out the research with my students, my understandings of these concepts will continue to deepen, and it will likely generate more questions that will lead to even more research. It's this kind of exploration that will keep me fresh and engaged in my teaching, even when other things may conspire to make my job difficult or unsatisfying.
As I grappled with career-changing and life-directing questions, my role as a teacher researcher emerged as a guiding light for me. Through researching the most pressing question and the most overwhelming problem that I face as a teacher, why can't my students read, and what can I do about it? I found a community of teacher researchers in books at the EMWP library that confirmed reading and literacy issues at the secondary level in urban schools were real. That research supported my experience and it resonated with me. The research confirmed what I was finding in the classroom every day, and although the problem of reading at my high school, it was discussed, but it was never really addressed, beyond a few teachers going to some reading conferences, and without the real specific objectives in mind, and without any program to make a change at the school. When reading Kylene Beer's account of her first days of teaching and when kids can't read, I realized that this has been an issue affecting urban, economically impoverished students for more than 30 years, and that unless educators who face these wonderfully talented but poorly educated children advocate for change, nothing will happen to improve urban students' school experience and literacy development. While doing the research, I discovered a program called the Reader's Apprenticeship Program. It was exciting because it showed that they made dramatic improvement in comprehension but also improvement in how students who previously saw themselves as non-readers and had low self-esteem and poor identity around being academic people, that also changed once they became competent readers as a result of this program. I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to trying to model this program in my school next year.
When I thought of teacher as researcher, I wondered how this would affect me and my students in the classroom. When I began to do research, I realized that many of the things I used in my classroom were actually backed by research. This allowed me to feel more confident with what I was presenting to my class. As I researched, I began to see that other teachers face the same issues in their classrooms. I feel that by becoming a better researcher, it has helped me to become a stronger and more confident teacher for my students.
The hardest part of selecting an area of research in my classroom was narrowing down my interests. There are questions I have about peer conferencing, the type of feedback I give students, and creating classroom community. I wonder about my approach to assessment. I chose a topic that I believed would address many of these areas simultaneously. In my research proposal, I described my desire to investigate portfolio-based assessment, along with my ideas for how I might do this in my classroom. I thought I had already included portfolios in my classroom, but after doing more research on portfolios, I realized that there were some tenets of a portfolio program that I had neglected to include. What I had basically done was to keep work files for each student, and then ask them to reflect on them at the end of the course, which is not the same as instituting a program of portfolio assessment. My question then became, what does a program of portfolio assessment really look like? And what would happen if I instituted such a program in my classroom? I plan to introduce the portfolio program in my classroom this fall, and to make observations and reflections for one semester. Teacher researchers ask questions about student learning. They make observations and collect data, and they reflect on what they've learned and share it with others. That's what teacher researchers do.